Good morning. Welcome to the PME 360 Powering Business Growth Show. Each week, we talk about the issues and offer advice on how to power growth for your local business. I'm your host, Ron Rohde Jr. With me, as always, the man with the plan, the marketing man, our CEO, Mr. Ryan Paul Adams. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being back with us. Excited to be doing this again.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
I'm very pleased with today's topic in webinar format on customer experience mapping with Parissa Behnia. Parissa, also known as the Idea Chef, helps her clients whip up meals in their strategy development kitchens that satisfy customer appetites and make them come back for more, be it for product marketing development, brand development, or other strategy needs. Her irrepressible imagination and strategic marketing mindset are the spices of her business arsenal, which can be applied to many industries. She is the founder of 678 Partners, a marketing and business strategy consultancy firm. Their solutions create and improve business strategy via sales or marketing approaches, sometimes both. She and her partner help clients with finding new prospects, winning new business, customer retention, messaging, and much more. Our special guest today, Ms. Parissa Behnia. Parissa, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Very excited to jump right into the topic on customer experience mapping. When you're ready, we can go ahead and get started. And again, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you. These days, customer experience is getting a lot of buzz, specifically in the social channels. We hear a lot about user experience. We hear a lot about customer experience. We hear lots of things about big data. And, for a lot of people, it can feel like it's this big kind of amorphous blob, and it's difficult to understand how to make it work for their particular business, their particular customers, their particular industry. So what I want to talk about today is there are actually ways to involve customer experience within your marketing and business strategy in ways that are manageable for your needs, your budget, your business, so on and so forth. Really, any business, large or small, can and should be doing this. These days, it's almost like keeping the lights on. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to understand customer experience and show your customers that you understand the experiences they're going through it.
Absolutely.
So some food for thought. Maya Angelou has said that I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And then Anais Nin has said, we don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are. And Parissa Behnia says, it's not about you. And the reason why I like the first two quotes in particular is the buying psychology is such that, lots of things, lots of businesses these days, they'll say, oh, look, my features are X, my benefits are Y, my price is Z. But people, and people certainly care, but really whatever is driving that actual purchase, the act of the purchase, is how what their gut indicates about you. So a lot of times we focus so much as people who provide a good or a service, we say, well, look, I'm smarter, I'm better than the other guy. But the customers don't always see that. The customers have something going on with them, and this is why it's so good to kind of be mindful of where they might be on their purchase path or how they're absorbing information. So what is a customer experience mapping exercise? Well, this great blog post I've read, and I've included a link on the bottom of the slide here, says that customer experience journey maps are a tool to help bring the outside world into an organization. They are a tool that can help bring customer stories to life. It's It's an entire story, not just the piece one silo or function within an organization normally may encounter. And as we map out the customer story, our organization-owned story becomes visible. And often what's revealed is an incomplete, fractured story. Now, what becomes really interesting is the second piece, that as we understand what's going on with the customer, that's when we realize things that we don't know that we're doing wrong. Because maybe sometimes customer service is a separate function from sales, is a separate function from marketing. Everyone's really busy. They don't always make sure all of the ducks are in a row. Once we see things from the customer's point of view, just operationally, regardless of the product or service we're delivering, operationally we see how we could be doing so much better. So going through this exercise helps us understand the customer, but selfishly it helps us understand about ourselves, to where we could be doing ourselves harm because we don't know where our fractures are in our own organization. Oops, sorry. Oops. Trigger finger, excuse me. Here we go. There we go. So Queen Elizabeth also has an opinion about customer service or customer journey mapping, and actually it's her revenue commission that does. They say it's a process of tracking and describing all the experiences that customers have as they encounter a service or set of services, taking into account not only what happens to them, but also their response to their experiences. Now, I love this quote because it shows you that the highest levels of government also realize that they need to care. Now, you could argue that some functions of government are inefficient, but what I particularly like about this is that typically a taxing authority is probably not the #1 entity you think of in terms of who actually cares about the customer experience. But I love it that these people in the UK are doing so. So that's great news that they're talking about it. Now, Forrester Research has done a tremendous amount of work on this topic, and they've just been such a great, wonderful resource. And anytime you can get a hold of one of their webinars to join, I highly recommend it. It's specifically the ones around customer experience. So the first thing they've learned in their research is that we've entered the age of the customer, an era where a focus on customers matters more than any other strategic imperative. Also, that their data show that companies are waking up to the fact that customers' perceptions have a profound impact on business metrics. And also, but while every executive knows that customer matters, most companies simply don't approach their interactions with customers in a disciplined way. So there's a bajillion surveys out there now that back this up that say while CMOs understand it's a problem and the need to invest, when you actually look at their investor dollar, where they're investing their marketing dollars, excuse me, they're just not walking the talk, let's say. For firms to succeed, managers need to understand the business case for redefining, implementing, and orchestrating the customer experience ecosystem. Now, what this means is that CMOs have to stop being brand ambassadors, and then they also have to start working a little bit more closely with what the P&L looks like, what the ROI of every single marketing exercise is. And, a lot of people say, well, something is just advertising, so do I really need to see what types of revenue impacts there are? And unfortunately for them, the answer is yes. So no matter the size of the business, this is something that we really need to understand more and more the business case of everything we do. And here's my favorite. This just came out recently. Experience is rapidly becoming the #1 driver of loyalty over price. Recent data show that for retail stores specifically, experience counts for 47% of loyalty, and when you add in price or value, it rises to 47.2%. And then for banks, it's 55% for experience, and then when you add, the feature and benefit stuff, it goes up to 56%. So again, that comment I made before about the buyer psychology and buying on your emotion or what your gut tells you to do, this backs us up very nicely.
Some very, very strong message points there from Forrester for sure. Very interesting.
Yeah, I can't say enough excellent things about Forrester. I highly recommend listening to their webinars if possible. So this next slide is also from Forrester, and it shows you how we've had this evolution into the age of the customer. And I won't go through all of these phases, but on this lower left corner you see, well, it was the age of manufacturing, and so this is best typified by that quote from Henry Ford back in the day where he said that, you know, he could create a Model T in any color for his customers as long as it were black. So that's a perfect example of it was all about Henry Ford, and he didn't much care what it was the customer wanted. He was just going to build the same car over and over and over again. And at that time, that worked for him. No disrespect to Henry Ford, but that was kind of a moment where it was the customer coming to him as opposed to going on the other way around.
Sure.
Now, on the far end, we have what we call the age of the customer. That's best typified of if anyone has walked into an Apple store recently, specifically going to the Genius Bar, the level of accommodation based on where you are in terms of your sophistication and the use of your products or your interest in purchase of the products drives how they choose to engage with you. So a couple of years ago, my dad was in the market for a new laptop, and so he wanted to be, the 70-plus-year-old guy wanted to be one of the cool kids and buy himself a Mac. And so we walk into an Apple store, and the guy that comes up to help him he's got hair down to his shoulders, and he's tatted up, and he's got a couple of different piercings. And my dad looked at him at first like, you know, is this guy going to be able to help me? But the guy asked my dad a couple of really good questions, and then he proceeded to give such a really good presentation of the different products, the products best suited to my dad, that my dad totally forgot that the guy had tats and piercings. I mean, I thought the guy was cool, but and so at the end of it, my dad turned to me and said, "Thank you so much. I feel so good about this purchase I'm making. You really should go into teaching because you really made me feel like you heard me, and you gave me the best solution possible to what I'm looking for." That is 100% proof of how much time, effort, and energy that Apple puts into training the people who work in their stores about how to accommodate the customer as opposed to making the customer accommodate them.
Absolutely.
And I know that everyone has a million good examples like that, but I think what Apple has done has been genius in my view. So customer experience mapping, not just buzzwords, sadly. These days, it's hard to differentiate one brand from another or one service from another, especially for customers. So when you map a customer journey, it's the first major strategic move that we as businesses can do to understand how customers perceive the buying experience. So we better understand what the pain points might be, and then it helps us understand how we can improve on the pain points, whether if we're the cause of the pain point or just generally there's a pain point in the process that we have no control over really, but it's a pain point nonetheless and we need to be mindful of it. What are the things that we can do to kind of help the customer get over that hump of that particular pain? The conversations about customer experiences are growing. There's more coverage, and the funding for this is increasing. Again, not enough to show that the walk is matching the talk, but it's getting a lot of buzz nonetheless. So customers are on multiple social networks. So, you know, between the three of us, I'm sure we're all on Facebook. We may all be on Twitter. We may all be on Pinterest. We may all be on Snapchat, Vine. We may all be on Clout. I mean, there's a bajillion different social networks that are out there. So consequently, this means that the deer have the rifle. And this is an era of on-demand marketing, which means that it's got to be relevant and responsive based on what the customer says the preferences are and what their behavior appears to be. So it's about us engaging with them on platforms they prefer, and then also at the times in which they prefer to be engaged with. And this last bullet I totally love. So there's this outfit called Watermark Consulting, and they did a study on the Forrester Customer Experience Leader portfolio, and so between 2007 and 2011, it beat the S&P by 27%, and the Customer Experience Laggard portfolio by 128%. So this tells you that there's real bottom line benefit to actually taking the time to look and see where there is actually benefit to understanding where the customers are on their particular journey and how to engage with them. I mean, these numbers don't lie.
Parissa, if I may, we often talk about reputation marketing, and everyone talks about reputation monitoring. And I think some of the points you make here in regards to the deer having the rifle and customer experience and just really being able to not only engage with your audience, but being able to really talk about the experience, whether or not they had, many people are telling other prospects, if you will, that, hey, my experience was not very good with this company. So we encourage our clients to, go ahead and take a look and respond to that on those social media platforms and talk about it and really disarm that situation before it gets out of hand. So I wanted to just add that in there, is that everyone's always constantly talking about you on social media, and if it's a bad experience, you got to go ahead and nip that in the bud.
Oh, so most definitely. And the best example of that is that I'm sure you guys have heard about this Amy's Baking Company in Arizona, where they were on Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, and they didn't come across as very positive. And so this couple, this husband and wife team that own this restaurant, they've had this meltdown on all forms of social networks, yet blaming all the Yelpers, blaming all the people that write negative reviews, dropping F-bombs left and right. That's certainly not a way to preserve your reputation. It maybe only cements an already bad reputation. So anything, to your point, someone can do to engage with that person, thank them for their feedback, but then going one step further, it's one thing to say thanks for your feedback. It's go a step beyond that to say, help me understand what your experience was. So one is, I can immediately take care of this issue to your satisfaction, but then also, too, so that we can prevent other people from going through the same exercise. So it's all well and good to acknowledge it, but showing that you have resolved it to that particular person's satisfaction is of the utmost importance. Even if that person never comes back to the social network where they posted something negative and say, hey, they took care of me, but you need to demonstrate that you've taken it all the way through.
Sure.
Not just address it, like you said, and provide an explanation, but actually come up with a solution to the problem. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I see on Facebook quite a bit, and also on Twitter quite a bit, I hear, thanks for your feedback, exclamation point. I'm like, well, great. So what does that actually mean? But
I'm an intern being paid to respond to this, but I'm not the business owner, so I'm not empowered to do anything about this.
No, that's exactly right. No, there's some outfits on Twitter in particular that are pretty responsive. So Southwest Air tends to be pretty responsive on Twitter, and I know that there's a host of others as well. But just kind of being on it, having some sort of social media or reputation management discipline, like a checklist of everything that you go through, such that, let's say it is only the intern left in the office and everyone else has gone for a golf outing or something. At least this person knows exactly what to do in the particular steps that shows discipline as well as a desire to fix whatever may have happened.
For sure.
All right. And so all this customer experience stuff, sadly, not optional anymore. It's kind of the turning the lights on in the morning, as I was saying before. Customers expect improved experience across every point of contact. In as much as people don't want to be stalked, and as much as people don't want a big brother type of life, we see a lot of people worried about how much information is out there about them, but at the same time they say, hey, you should know me and know what I like or what I don't like about working with you or buying from you. An understanding of the customer experience must be evident in every element of the media mix. So a perfect example is, let's say you buy something from a company and then you get an email from them, 2 weeks later saying, hey, thanks for being such an awesome customer. Have you thought about, buying this product from us next time, but then the product that they're recommending is maybe just a different brand of the same type of product that the customer had just bought from them before. So just knowing them and not doing things like that is very important for people.
Right.
It's essential to provide quality customer experiences throughout the life cycle. It's not just at acquisition, and it's not at the time where someone chooses to re-up with you. Every single time, every single touch point, big or small, we need to be mindful of. It doesn't mean that we do something at every single touch point of how long a relationship is, but it is important that we do something at every step of the way, not at the time where it benefits us only.
Right.
Customer experience must be driven by preferences regarding message, timing, frequency, and media mix. So, if a customer says, I only want email, then they really mean it. They only want email, and we need to be mindful of that. And then the preferences must drive high-quality personalization of communications and experiences. So not only when the customer says, I only want email, but when the customer says, I only want email, and I only want to hear about your widgets, and I don't want to hear about anything else, then really we should only be emailing them about widgets. Unless they say back to us, and occasionally you can tell me about sprockets, but really it should only be about widgets, and it should only be fit within email until they tell us that they've changed their minds.
Right.
And lastly, the focus of the experience must be on engaging, not managing the customers. And this last point is really important. I read this really interesting article the other day about a lot of people are using the term loyalty and CRM interchangeably. And the point of the argument, or the point of the article, was that's not necessarily the case, and it isn't necessarily the case. Making sure that the customers are happy, making sure that they are satisfied with whatever good or service that's being delivered is more about engaging with them and understanding them on their terms, as opposed to, well, if it's Monday, I'm going to talk to Jane Doe about X, and then if it's Wednesday, I'm going to talk to Jane Doe about Y. 20 years ago, maybe that worked because the technology wasn't there to do more on-demand or real-time marketing, but that's practically the time of the abacus now. We really should be talking about how to engage, and not as opposed to these kind of episodic events that are not based on anything factual or meaningful.
So the article in regards to CRM and loyalty, tell me a little bit more about that. Are they saying that the companies that have CRM, they're just automating the process a little too much, or what exactly were they trying to get at there?
Oh, and thanks for asking that question. It's a good one. So we all need these systems, but we shouldn't be confusing a system with the act of engaging with the customer and developing loyal relationships with these customers. So it's this layer that you have to add on top of whatever that emotional piece is in the buyer psychology. So the CRM system records behaviors, it records preferences, it records whatever our marketing efforts have been with them to date and whatever the customer actions are, but that's a data collection engine. It's not a engagement engine. The engagement engine comes in with, based on the information that we've collected and understanding what their preferences are and being able to come up with some sort of touch point strategy with these customers that show that I know you and I like you, such that the customers say back to you, not only do I know you and I like you, but I trust you.
Right. And now I'm ready to speak with you. They raise their hand, and that's when the engagement begins. So
that's exactly right. So it wasn't knocking CRM. It was knocking the notion that loyalty and CRM are interchangeable.
Got it.
terms.
Makes sense. Okay. Yep.
But you need CRM to start the process of loyalty.
In other words, it does not take away from, hey, pick up the phone once in a while and reach out to the individual and speak with them and check in, talk to them, right? Because it's so easy to hide behind CRM or hide behind email even, but picking up the phone, calling your client, depending on your type of business, of course, but right. I think that's a lost art, or a dying art, I should say.
That's exactly right. So, and I'm so glad you said that. Loyalty is an art. It is science, and to the extent that you're using CRM tools to help build loyalty engagement devices, let's say. But it is absolutely an art, and that's why customer experience is so hot, is that even though there's like this discipline of mapping customer experience, but taking everything you learn about the customer and then getting to the point where how I engage with Ron may be totally radically different from how I engage with Ryan, even though let's say for the sake of argument, you guys look exactly the same. Maybe you even live next door to each other in these identical houses with these white picket fences, but it doesn't mean that I treat you the same exact way. And where loyalty comes in is understanding and appreciating those differences, and creating relationships with you to say, hey, you've told me this is important, so I'm only going to share with you what you've told me is important, and then also demonstrating that you're consistently understanding what's important to you and only delivering on that. And at such time where I stop demonstrating to you that I am consistently understanding that, that's when you say, you know what, maybe I want to break up with you and I want to start dating someone else.
Right.
So it's like the whining and dining and the romance of your better half. Do we actually have the discipline to do that?
Right.
Henry Ford didn't, but Apple is. That's really where it's coming from.
Interesting. Thank you.
Sure. So, we've been talking about, mapping and customer experience and all that stuff. So what can it actually look like? Now, the nice people at Lego have been thinking about this for a very long time. And what this is they decided that they would develop this exercise that would show what the life of a traveler looks like when flying from London to New York to visit Lego. And so what you see are these three sections of before the actual trip, during the actual trip, and then after the trip is done. And what it does is that it highlights the make or break moments in the entire experience and pinpoints the requirements to be able to improve that experience and build elements of surprise which aim to amaze the customer. It also tests the customer experience regularly by refining what these experience wheels look like and the elements of surprise associated with it. So, if we were to look briefly at this before stage here, you're contacting the travel department, you book your tickets, maybe you receive tickets, you're checking in at the train station to take you to Heathrow. It goes all the way through to the lounge where you're waiting to get on your plane. And so these faces that you see here, you could have kind of this straight line, and the straight line could be, it could, could be bad, it could be worse, it could be better. It's kind of indifferent. It can be a so-so kind of experience. But when you actually book the tickets, and this is where the I comes in next to the words book tickets, that shows that it would be helpful to have information to make the booking tickets process even better. So if you call the travel agent and you say, hey, I'm interested in flying to New York from London, maybe it would be nice for the travel agent to know that you like a window seat, and you're likely flying first class. Maybe you hate flying one type of airline, but you prefer flying another type of airline, and maybe you also prefer a vegetarian meal. This is where knowing in advance what your preferences might be, it could make the booking ticket process easier, faster, quicker, cheaper. You're collecting miles, whatever it is that happens to be important to you. If the travel agent knows that, then it makes it go by much better for you.
I know a lot of five-star hotels have started to do that, right? When a high-profile guest is checking in, they know exactly the temperature of the room that this individual prefers. They know what channel they like to watch on the TV. They know that they like their shades drawn or not. So you can even take it to that, not necessarily extreme of an example. It's now come to be expected is, okay, this is exactly what this customer prefers, and this is what we're going to give them. So similar concept.
That's exactly right. And so, I'm not going to bore you by going through the entire wheel, but the whole point is by going through this, and this obviously isn't what Lego only does, but they obviously do it for their different lines of business. But the point is that what they want to do is understand what is and is not important to the customer in the experience, and then design a wow experience to improve it. So if you go through, some of these things here are, it's kind of, you can't improve how fast or slow a train moves. You just need to know that a person gets on a train, let's say, to go to the airport. You can't improve what life is like going through customs or anything like that. But you need to know if that's going to, you need to understand that that might be a harrowing process, it might be a stressful process, it may take time getting cleared, maybe after you get to New York you're jet lagged. Just knowing that all of these things are there helps you be more mindful of in how you choose to engage with that person. And then they use these different icons on the bottom of what's a make or break moment. So to the point of, there are things that you have no control over, but there are things that directly influence how your customer may feel about you. They call it a make or break moment, which is why they have this kind of sign on the bottom, that little less than sign. What can we do to make sure customers come back time and time again? And this is certainly one way to do it. There's also this way of doing it, which appears to be an eye chart. But the most important things about this chart, just to keep in mind, is on the left they've identified their customer types, or their personas, as some people like to call them. On the bottom left, they've outlined what the keys are to the map. And then in the actual map itself, they've identified what their phases are. So on the top, and again, I understand that this is an eye chart, on the top they have like a discover phase, then the next phase is called an investigate phase, there's a prepare phase, there's an apply phase, there's a receive phase, and so on and so forth, and it kind of starts again. And it shows every single step of the journey itself. And then on the bottom, under each of the phases, it calls out what the specific touch points and interactions might be per phase. So some people are visual learners, that's why you see the sketches on top, but other people are more, they don't need the visuals as much, they just kind of need the dragnet kind of facts. And then based on how you choose to process information, based on what you learned in this actual experience mapping, you see where the times where you're really doing it right, and then the points of time where there's pain, either pain that you have unintentionally caused or that there is pain there in and of itself that you need to be mindful of. And then also at the very bottom, it shows the highs and lows of each part of what the actual service is like. So the point of showing these two different charts, and I've included the link where there's a bunch of different charts like this, that blog post, that's a really good blog post, by the way. It's to say everyone does it differently. There's no right way to sketch it. The point is that try to sketch it or try to have some sort of design to visually show that you've captured as many of the steps of the customer's journey as
Sure.
you possibly can.
Someone spent a significant amount of time on this, and it's very, very interesting. Appreciate you running through this. I'm sure it deserves a little more attention, but it's. I think you touched on the high-level stuff there.
Yeah, and so what I want to talk about next is how someone actually does this, because, you know, the first time I learned about this, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not smart enough to do this, or I don't have the skills to do this, or it's for other people, it's not for me. And so what I'm going to lay out for everyone listening in is, well, it can be hard, but this can be done in manageable steps. And it's certainly something that is a repeatable process. We didn't all learn how to ride the bike the very first time we tried, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't at least try to learn how to ride a bike.
Right.
So the first step is defining the customer and his or her needs. So this means doing some brainstorming and visualization exercise to create personas. So, you know, in English, this is, you know, let's just use a gas station as an example. A gas station says, who are my customers? Well, my customers are people that want gas. And then you could break it down further and say, well, my gas station is an oasis off of the tollway, and so you expand upon it further and you say, well, it's 3 different types of gas for the normal cars, but maybe these are also people that need diesel because maybe there are truck drivers coming through, and maybe these are also people who are hungry. So just developing some type of picture of who your customers are and what it is that they're seeking from you. And giving them a name is helpful, trying to find pictures of people who you likely serve. So maybe you're only servicing people who are 20 to 30 years old. Create pictures, give them names, try to imagine what their life might be on a day-to-day basis when you're envisioning your customer targets. Then the next step is using secondary research data about your target to complement whatever visualization you've done. So there's loads of free information out there. You certainly don't have to buy stuff. There's whatever your Facebook likes might be. I'm sure folks have a sense of their Google Analytics. There's a paid service called Sprout Social where it's like a social media dashboard. I'm sure your clients look to you for the data that you provide from your solutions. But really, it's whatever information that you already have from your digital platforms is actually the information that complements who your personas are. And if you have time to do some basic focus groups, you don't even need to hire a professional moderator. You can just call on your customers to understand their lives a little bit better, the ones that you feel closer to, of course, to see, hey, you know, this is who I think my customer is about. Does this feel right with you? So it doesn't have to be overwrought, but it's definitely something that you can do. So the next bullet is, you know, split the process into phases appropriate for your business. So the Lego wheel had like before, during, and after. You could do pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. It's whatever the phases are that are appropriate to do. Then that other slide had like 5 or 6 phases. Whatever is manageable for you is what you should do. I can't tell you how many phases there should be, but what I can tell you to do is that we need to understand each step of the experience within each phase. So understanding which things are directly in your control there's circumstances around it and how you can improve them, understanding what's not in your control, the circumstances, and then how to find ways to lessen the negatives or leverage the positives for how you choose to market and engage. So an example of a circumstance out of your control is, let's say you have a competitor just like you, and you know that your competitor is doing banner ads, or they're doing paid search, or they're doing things in a certain way intercepting a customer in a buying process. If you know that that's what your competitors are doing, what can you do to understand that that's what your customers and prospective customers are seeing? And then the other question you should be asking yourself is, what are you doing now that you should or could be doing? What are things that, maybe even more importantly, that you need to stop doing? And that's stopping activities, I've found amongst our clients, has been something really difficult, but it's got to be an activity nonetheless to really do some serious self-examination.
I'm sure. Yep.
The next bullet is understanding who the key stakeholders are to validate the work. So folks in your marketing departments, who your outside business partners are, new customers, best customers, former customers, and then based on what they say, make some adjustments to how you've developed your map. And then based on your map, then you're creating or you're tailoring your marketing strategies. So it's, at this point, maybe you need to think about technology or service upgrades. So this is the time that, and your customers in specific, maybe they come back to you and say, hey, based on our mapping exercise, I know that we've taken X of your services, but now we also need to be adding on because this is what we're seeing will be of great benefit to us. And even though there might be this additional expense, it turns out that it'll be a boost to our bottom line to take you up on that. And also, more important than technology is, how ready is your team to embrace this? Do they actually want to do it? And the cultural stuff here, you can't really give it short shrift. It's got to be something that you take very seriously and see how your team feels about going through and analyzing every step of the way and changing how you engage with your customers every step of the way. Not everyone wants to do it. A lot of people dislike change, and understanding the change management issues here is of utmost importance. And then you have to measure your results. You might not hit it out of the park the first time. You have to go back, make adjustments, understanding what your numbers show or don't show you, and finally rinse and repeat. It's an ongoing iterative process. The best example is, and I know as a Bulls fan, this is a very sensitive thing to bring up, especially since our Bulls lost to Miami.
It's a tough one.
The one thing that you can't criticize LeBron James for is his ability to constantly improve and refine his game. So I read an article about him recently about, I guess it was in the off season, he went and he hired Hakeem Olajuwon so that LeBron could improve his low post game. Here's the guy that's been the MVP, however many times over, and he's still going to Hakeem to say, hey, you know what, my low post game could use a little work. That's someone who is constantly going through the experience of playing basketball and realizing how he could be better. It's a sensitive topic, but I think LeBron's a perfect example.
Right.
And, Michael Jordan did the same thing. He always tried to improve his game.
I mean, look at Tiger Woods. He went and he redeveloped his entire swing, deconstructed it, and built it back. So countless examples, and especially in the world of sports and professional athletes, that continually train, continually get better. It's not unlike a small or large business. You're trying to do the same thing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so that's pretty much it for me. I've included a list here of some really great articles and blog posts to read for folks to learn more. And here are ways to contact me if people have any questions. So Really appreciate it. I realize that we went over our time a little bit, but
That's always the sign of a quality speaker when we go over time. I know that you put a lot of effort into this. Really appreciate you being on. Parissa, look forward to future conversations. And my last question was how people can contact you, but that's right up on the screen. So thank you so very much, Parissa. Ryan, thanks for joining us as well, and we will see you next time.
Parissa, thank you. That was great.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care now.